No worries. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm in Brazil, so here's already night. So I can see you all like night all day there. So that's nice. Hope you guys are enjoying the fall weather over there. Here's like freaking summer. So that's good. I'm gonna screen share mine so we can get started. Okay, let's get this party started. So for those who don't know me, I'm Camilla Ciappina. I'm a senior art director at Publicis New York during the day. And at night, I like to pimp portfolios with Pimp My Portfolio, which is pretty much a side project I created to revamp people's portfolio presentation. So it's like my baby. I did 520 portfolios so far. So I'm like super excited with this accomplishment. And I invited here Marina Beldi, she's a CD at Gray, New York. Marcelo Ramirez, he's a CD at Johannes Leonardo. And Bharat, so sorry if I messed this one up. Kumar, CD at Johannes Leonardo too. So thank you very much for joining us. And today the panel is I usually like to drop pimp tips, but this time I'm gonna ask questions for the panelists about what do they think about portfolios. So just get ready, guys, because I changed some questions from last night. So it's going to be good. And then whoever is watching, please make sure you send your Q&A, like questions on the Q&A chat so I can have everything there. And we're going to have time to ask questions to our guests. So come prepared and it's going to be great. The first question I like to ask everybody is how often do you update your own book? Because it's so easy for us to judge people's portfolio, but then when it comes to ours, we never do anything about it. I can tell because I update my portfolio like once a year, and I pin portfolio, so I should keep updating the layout like a lot. But I wanted to hear from you guys. How often do you update your book as a layout presentation, and how often do you update with your work? You can start, Marina, because I feel like you are like thinking. I can tell.
So first of all, I need to thank you because you were the one who pimped my book the last time.
True that.
Before that, I would say that I felt that I was never satisfied where I was getting with my book. I as a good like creative, it's a never finished project, so we always want to improve and keep improving that. So I think my standards were like, if I had a new campaign, I would try to get that time that I was like, okay, let me just go take a look what's going on. But I think it was the boost that I need. It's when a campaign or a project comes out, I would be like, now it's the time for me to go take a look on my book and update it. But also for me, it was another time, like, timestamp, I would say that it was if I was starting to look for a new job, or if I saw some book that got very like inspiring me and I was like, okay, maybe this could be like a good example or opportunity for me to go take a look on mine. I felt that when I was starting my career, I think for my first year when I got out of like a portfolio school to start getting my job, I think my book changed at least 10 times, but like drastically changed. I try all
templates. I used to delete every time I come home from an interview, like bye.
Exactly. I was like every time like looking at everybody's book, I was like, oh, this works, this doesn't. But I feel that what I normally tell the students at my class in Miami Ad School is like, don't get too attached to your book, how it looks or the theme, because you will change. So it needs to change with you, because your book needs to be 100% you. So you need to talk your book whenever you go to a portfolio review or you're presenting your book. It needs to be who you are. So if you cannot see that on you when you're presenting it, and the book has a completely different personality, or it's not as bold, or it's not as techy as the way you talk, it will find that gap in between, and people will feel it. So I think that's my answer for that.
That's a good one. You guys?
I think what you said, Marina, makes a lot of sense, and it happens a lot that way. I think there are creatives that probably go a year or two and they're just crushing their work. They're doing the best work that they've ever done, and they're feeling like maybe they're just too busy, or they're celebrating their work so much that there's no time to even update, and maybe they have no plans to even go anywhere. And I totally understand that too. But I think, if, as a rule of thumb, if after every project, or at least after every big life event, even, you should try to update your book. And I say life event because your book is also a representation of you, right? So you need to, what that about section is just as important as the work. So, if you could follow and maintain that rule, that's the best way. Because at the end of the day, also, I've been a part of projects where maybe I lost a file, or whatever. So if I can actually get it all done, get the best, track my work as best as possible, record my work as best as possible, and just get it up there. I actually don't mind when I look at books, if I see a coming soon, you can put it as a placeholder. It just shows that there's something coming, right?
That's interesting. I never heard people saying that. That's really cool, because you don't see that a lot. People get shy on doing that for some reason. They shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, they shouldn't. And just, throw it on there and then update it as you go along.
I think it's a good point. Sorry to interrupt and add, but like in progress, like whenever it's in production as well, if you are proud and like not the completely campaign came out, but it's like some parts, just put a password on. So at least it doesn't stop you for showing that project if in case you're looking for a new job as well.
Yeah, that's so true.
I completely agree with that. I think the not so funny response would be every pandemic is how often I update my book. Yeah, too soon. Still in it. But I think, Marcelo and I are very similar in this sense. Like whether it's our timesheets or a project that we complete, we try and do it like as quickly as possible, not because we're super responsible, but because you forget, right? And you know the work so intimately well at that point in time that you can throw everything at it. And then I think when you have the luxury of, perspective, and when you can kind of like look back on something, then you can say like, wait, that was a little too close for me. Nobody else cares about that. Let me cull some stuff down. Let me get to what is the most critical ingredients and what was the process and what I'm most proud of, which I think time affords you that. I also think like what that does, what Marina said was spot on. Like when I came out of ad school, like I probably did change my book after every interview or pretty much every 2 weeks. And they were wholesale changes. It was like, I started off with what I thought was a really cool vibe where it was like vintagey and stuff like that. And then it quickly realized that that didn't really help me out, right? I think it was more about how do I organize my thoughts and my ideas and show the best work. So it would kind of be fluid in terms of the order of the work, as well as the layout as a whole in terms of what the template was that you used. And I changed platforms. I went from, what was it? I think it was called Carbon something. I can't even remember what it's called.
Oh, Carbomate.
Was it? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Oh, those are good.
And then I went to Cargo and now I'm on Squarespace. Yeah. So like
Squarespace is my favorite.
Agreed. And then people are telling me about other ones that I'm not even familiar with right now. But and then I think it also works like if you're like in a working, not working type thing, how quickly do you update it? Again, it's not because you're actively looking, but I think even when you're not actively looking, it's good to show people what you're working on, what you're proud of, and what you want to showcase. Like, and that's the one thing I'd say, like, put the work that you're proud of or the things that you learned in that specific project or assignment that you can actually talk to with some semblance of authority and conviction. Yeah,
because I always say, like, you may not be looking for a job right now, but there's always a job looking for you. So you never know where the next opportunity is coming from. And a lot of people leave for last minute. Like, oh, I have an interview tomorrow. I have to pin my portfolio. And I was like, seriously? It's like, not good, man, not good. But that happens a lot. So make sure you always update your portfolio, please, whenever you have a chance.
And I think one thing you told me when we were pimping my book, it's like, use the platform that I think that for me was crucial. And now I say what you told me. Like, use the platform that you feel comfortable using afterwards. Like, because remember we were trying to switch. I wanted to switch platforms, but you were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no, just keep the one that you feel comfortable with, because it's the best way for you, and like faster way for you to keep your book always updated.
Oh, I'm glad that you remember my tips. That's good. That makes me happy. Thank you. I mean, I think you guys covered what you did on, like, what you learned from your first portfolio, because like mine, I had Carbo Made and then I moved to Cargo Collective and then I did Squarespace. But moving from Brazil to the US, like the culture is so much different from what I'm used to. So when I first reached out to a recruiter, I had like the worst portfolio ever. Like clearly the worst portfolio, and I didn't have Pimp back then, but that was insane. So I deleted my portfolio like every interview. So that's what I learned from, is like, instead of like going hunting for jobs down, take a step back, analyze your portfolio from the competition, see what they are doing so you can like readjust to yours. That's what I did learn from my first portfolio, but I'm curious to hear what you guys learned, because we do have a lot of recent grads here. So that's a good opportunity for them to learn with our mistakes.
I started on this one called Exhibit, I believe.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah. Did you like that one?
The rapper?
What was that?
The rapper?
Yes. That.
Yeah.
I think it was really simple for me to learn at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking, I saw a lot of experimental portfolios, not from ad creatives, just from, painters and just coders and stuff like that. So I really went to that. But what I learned really quick is what Bharat talked about, is that I added flourishes to it. I had this tab system that I thought was really, smart and cool. And then I realized that there's a creative director on the other end of that, just to see my work, having to click 4 times. And again, at that point, speeds weren't as fast as they are today. And it was just the dumbest thing I could have done. And at the end of the day, it was, I think I should have applied that to a piece of work, maybe a side hustle or something like that, instead of, the actual navigation system of my portfolio. Yeah. One of the biggest mistakes I think right now is like, let me get to the work as fast as possible. Put it up there. Don't let me guess where the navigation is. Don't let me guess where the button is. Because, and also for recruiters, you got to understand, a lot of recruiters are, before COVID, probably looking at this in front of a pool. And rightfully so, more power to them. They're able to do that, but they're looking at it on an iPad, the navigation changes a little bit there. That's kind of why I moved to my current system. But, it's just don't let them guess. Let them get to the work as soon as possible and let the work do the talking.
I love that you said that, because I'm used to doing these talks with recruiters and they have their point of view. And this is my first time where I'm talking to creative directors, and it's good to know that you think the same way, because that means I'm not saying like stupid things. So that's good. Thank you for adding that, because
I just had an embarrassing interview where the creative director was in front of me. I was like, wait, and I think the soundbite was like, so I'm clicking 4 times now. And I was like,
oh no. That's the worst, because I mean, I imagine you get a lot of portfolios, so you definitely want like an easy to navigate website, because I can imagine a lot of people bug you via email, like, can you see my portfolio? And then you don't have enough time in between meetings and stuff. So, I mean, you need to see everything right away and it needs to catch your attention, but not in a crazy like navigation kind of way. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, awesome.
I think the one thing I'd add to that is just like I said, you speak with authority and conviction about your ideas. Also, don't be precious about them, right? There are certain things that I think as you start talking to creative directors or recruiters, you'll quickly realize that what you thought was a dope idea or something you take immense pride in, that's fantastic. Glad you take pride in your craft and your work and stuff like that. But sometimes it just doesn't resonate, right? And learning that right now and right away is going to just help you out down the road, because you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear a lot of things that people don't like about your work, right? And I think the sooner you come to grips with that, and the sooner you realize what's actually rising to the top versus what's falling by the wayside, the better off your portfolio is going to be, in not only in the short term, but in the long term.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank
you
for sharing.
I agree with everything you guys said. I heard a lot on my first books were that because I was an art director, I was not very detail driven with how I present the things. As we were talking before, sometimes it was like not very high resolution image because I lost the file or I was trying to do it quickly. And I remember a few portfolio reviews saying like, how do you want to present yourself as an art director if you're not paying attention to those small details, that it's all about art and design. So I think that's what I learned a lot with my first portfolio, as well as talking to recruiters. I realized that they have a sequence to see your book, the projects on your book. So it's a lot of the UX that you guys were talking before. Yeah. It's like, it needs to be easy. It needs to be in their face, the projects that you want to make sure that they see it. So don't leave, like, the sequence that you put in your book matters a lot and change the way that the person navigate your book.
Those are really good. The image one is really smart, not just for art directors, because the other day I saw this portfolio and the person was a copywriter and the image was so pixelated that I could barely read the copy. And then I like, we should change that. And then like they lost the file, like I get that, but it's like small details like that can make a whole difference when you are like showing your portfolio around. So we don't want to sound annoying, but man, those things make a huge difference. Trust me. It's like insane. So that, I mean, as I said, you guys see a lot of portfolios. So what is the most important thing you're looking for when you review a book? It doesn't matter the level. I mean, from recent grad to even senior peeps like me, like what are you looking when you review a portfolio? You can go, Marina, because I know like you're like wanting to talk.
No, I'm just very close to the camera. Sorry. What I like to see, I think ideas mainly, it's the key thing. And it, depending the level, I want to see how you develop your idea, because the seniors start to get it. Like you see in a junior book that you see the big idea sometimes, but the idea is not completely rounded. But once you start getting to a more senior side, it's like how that person developed the entire idea or how far they could expand that idea. If I am seeing a copywriter book, I like to see, again, the idea, but also that he can write all types of copy. So it's, some people like doesn't care for radio, but I love seeing that someone can write on radio, because now it's coming back and it's not something very easy to do it. So I love to see radios. I love to see short copy and long copy. For art director, I think I need to see a good print, because print is for me the hardest thing that you can do it. You don't have the power of motion or the time to tell the entire story. It's one still image and one line of copy. So I need to see that. I need to see if the person as an art director is attentive. So, but overall, it's how you develop and express your idea. So
love that.
And you're
that, yeah.
About. If your personality doesn't match, bye-bye. No, I'm joking.
The about page is my favorite part when I review a portfolio. It's like the first thing I check. I don't know about you guys, but
same thing. It's the about section. I mean, this is a big question, right? I think you could kind of slice it and dice it in a number of different ways, but you know, I don't want to hijack too much of what Marina said, because I agree with a lot of that, right? Like the way you show range, the way you show tone of voice as a copywriter, the way you show different styles and aesthetics as a designer or an art director, those are all really important. And I would hope that that's part and parcel to how you're putting your portfolio site together. I think a couple of things that I look for is ownership / honesty of the work, right?
That's good.
I think what you realize is whether you're in school or whether you're in your first gig or your fifth gig, right? You start working with teams a lot. And sometimes you might crack the big idea. Sometimes you might just have a line and you've helped contribute and build on it. It's a game of brainstorming and yes and collaborating, but be precise about, you know, what your role was and be confident in it. It's okay not to have like the idea not be yours, but you were a part of a larger team to do so. But I think the more honest you are about that, I think the more that character shows, and that that is actually a really good quality that people look for, right? Because I think what we look for in the books is not only the latent talent, but is this going to be a chemistry and a cultural fit after the fact, right? So I think that that's huge.
Yeah, 100%.
I also think just like the print is the first thing I go to. Like I probably don't look at videos nearly. I know Marcelo looks at videos, and I'm jumping ahead here. I look at
Oh,
the
that's
print,
interesting.
right? I don't have, if I don't like a print ad that is the single summation of what a campaign idea is or how a headline is treated, what the
Yeah.
hierarchy and composition is, I kind of lose it. So I look for that, and I'll dance around a site. Like I don't really have a specific order personally. If someone labels it as print, it's even better, and I can go directly to it. But I kind of do like a shotgun approach initially.
So you don't even watch the case studies. So it's better to have like a project description, and if it interests you, you click to see.
Yeah.
Interesting. I
Copywriters,
like
am I
that.
right?
I'll make them watch the case study if it's.
That's funny.
I like.
Oh,
I like that we have the
studies.
partners, so you guys can just like argue. Like
Yeah.
I do that. No.
I'm with you about the about section. I go to that first. I try to find a character and a personality within that, because I think the work is going to speak for itself, but who's going to speak for you, right?
Mhm.
You need to just, and it doesn't have to have bells and whistles. It's how you speak about yourself and how you speak about the industry. You know, there are a lot of, you know, this is a tough industry and a lot of people badmouth it, but like, you know, they show
Yeah.
some excitement about it. Show some excitement about your work.
And it shows personality too.
Yeah. And then I love, especially for juniors and even mids, and I love print. I love radio. You know, that's, you still have the opportunity to have spec work. Do as much as you can. You know, take pride in how you show the print ad. You know, for designers, for example, you see a lot of really good design books that if they make a poster, that's great. You can upload a JPEG of a poster, but you can also print it out if you happen to have access to a bigger printer, right? And then, you know, take a photo with that in situation. You know, it doesn't have to,
Yeah.
the media wasn't bought that way, doesn't mean you can't create it yourself.
I love all those questions, those answers. Yeah, that's really good, because like we get a lot of students, and then they always come to like, I do like side projects so I can show like all the things I can do, like the different set of skills, which I think is like a good direction if you're a recent grad to show, or not even if you're a recent grad. Sometimes we don't get the best project at the agency, like the best brief. So outside the work hours, we also like to show like our extra skills. So that's why I love side projects. I expect that on a portfolio as well, because it shows like a different side that we don't get to see on a day-to-day brief. So that's also, besides the about page, is my personal project. As you can tell, I like to meet the person as who she is. So I just go for the personality. Okay, I think we covered that now. Okay, so for copywriters, what do you expect on a copywriter and art director portfolio? I get this question a lot because a lot of copywriters, especially junior, they always say like, do I need to have like a long copy? That's what people are expecting from me. Or if I know how to write a good case study, like script. And then for art directors, like, should I be more designy with typography? Like for you all, like what do you expect on a portfolio for art directors or copywriters?
Who do you want to go first?
Oh, you can go. I like that. You can go. Okay.
So as a copywriter, I like to see it all, right? If I get to a point where I'm watching a case study video or Marcelo's forcing me to watch one, like, you know, Clockwork Orange style, then I will. But I think that's a unique skill set and an art in and of itself, right? Crafting a case study, and that we're still learning that, and we're, you know, hopefully we're learning a lot of other shit too. But you're continuously going to find ways of telling that story and getting to the beats of the idea. So that's why it's like very much a final pass for me, especially when it comes to junior books. But I think it really depends on the level, right? How much of it were you instrumental in writing? How much of it were you instrumental in coming up with the idea? How much of it were you part of in terms of someone else came up with the idea, but it was your job to flesh it out, right? Again, that's where I talk about the ownership and how you're able to adopt a tone of voice or adopt a brand persona. So seeing short, mid, and long is really good. I think scripts are really difficult to read. Not from the standpoint of I can see where it goes, but it doesn't show you in the best light. I personally couldn't care less if a copywriter has a poorly art directed, pixelated piece of work, because I know that, you know, it's really hard to find a partner and to get to that level of finesse. But I want to make sure that they are super attentive to proofreading, typos, grammar, you know, consistency in terms of how punctuation and title case versus sentence case, all that stuff is treated, because the more attuned to that you are, the more that, you know, your seniors, your ACDs and your CDs have one less thing to worry about, you know, and that there's trust that can immediately be built into it. And when I say short, mid, and long, I'm including, you know, whatever format. It could be a banner ad, it could be radio, it could be a tweet. It could also be in terms of how you set up what the insight and the idea was, right? Like there's an art to that too, that I love the brevity of it, and the succinctness of how that comes through.
That's really helpful.
In terms of art direction, it's the same. It's probably the inverse of it, right? I couldn't care less if there were, you know, if there were grammar issues or if the language wasn't exactly right. But if you feel like you're tapping into it, especially for a junior book, you're tapping into the persona and the brand voice, and you're showing that come through in terms of composition, in terms of structure and hierarchy, and the aesthetic really pays it off. That's fantastic. And then the same thing there, I would say, like, okay, what is your poster, your printout, like Marcelo said, right? How do you start thinking about what a mood board is or what the overall look and feel of something is? I think your portfolio as a whole helps you do that. So I think they're corollaries to each one. I'm going to let the art directors here speak to this a lot more than I can, but hopefully that helps.
But I love seeing the copywriter's point of view of art director's portfolio, because like that's super interesting. I would love to see like art director's point of view of copywriter's book. That would be interesting too. Come on, guys.
I think Bharat was talking about scripts, and I think there's a question about how the best way to show a radio spot.
Yeah.
Just put the quick time on there, you know, talk about the idea. Don't just put links and I have no idea what I'm going to get once I click this link. Tell me about, you know, what the idea was. How did you come to it quickly, right? It's just, it could even be bullet points, you know, just get me excited about the work or what's coming to me. And then of course, I'm going to listen to it. I definitely agree. Radio's coming back. Print is coming back. You know, I like to think print never died, because it just goes, you know, to Instagram, right? Or, you know, just a post. But
true.
Look at how your presentation's set up right now for art directors. You know, I think it's not about learning, you know, how to code and changing the font. You know, you could do well with just the default fonts given to you from Squarespace or whatever it may be. But just think about the color scheme. My portfolio is black and white. I got tired of, you know, but that's a color scheme right there. You know, just be consistent with it.
Yeah.
And make sure if you're gonna do with black and white, then just, you know, make sure the work speaks for itself and everything else is considered, like idea write-up, insight, etc.
Completely agree with you, what you both said. I think for me, what I think, depending the level you are, it's all about ideas. Don't be afraid to show spec work if you're still like junior, mid-level. A lot of times, I think it's considering that sometimes you didn't have the opportunity to produce the coolest work, but instead of putting just the produced work, that it's not as fantastic or doesn't have this big idea that you believe on. I rather see more spec work than produced work that it's just nah. I think that's something that I like to see on a more junior and mid-level sense. I like to see for copywriter that the person knows how to have any tone of voice. It's not like, I understand that you have a preference, that you like to do humor, if you like to do more like serious, like each one has your preference the same way that art directors does. But it's good for an art director that I would be working with, that he's flexible and he's like, he can work in any kind of brand. Of course, he's gonna have his strength, but And I think for art directors, what it's calling my attention the most lately is I like to see that the person has craft. I like to see that the person has a sense of, as you were talking, Marcelo, like the color. I like to see that the person is being careful about the like the typographic that you're using, or if that there is a treatment. Because I think lately people are caring less for that, and it's a huge deal when you're doing a campaign.
Yeah.
So I think overall, I agree with everything that the guy said. And
You know, Marina, you bring up a really good point, and I think we kind of glossed over it or took it for granted, but craft, right? Like, I think, Marcel, if you said it, I apologize, but you're the first person to say the words craft. That is super, super critical, right? I want to see that people care about what they do.
yeah,
And so, even if they have side work as a copywriter, right? They've written for, I don't know, The Onion, or they even have Spec Onion like stuff, and they want to show their humor in that sense because all their work is earnest or dramatic or whatever. That's a nice way of flexing and showing tone of voice, right? The same thing is true for art directors. Like, you know, I want to see maybe that you have a passion for photography or set design, right? Or you know, it could be any number of things, but how do you dimensionalize yourself so it's not just that specific lane that you're in, but you have an overall passion for the job as a whole and the different things that you're going to be touching when you get a gig.
Yeah, one time a person told me like, "Oh, I'm afraid of saying that I know how to do like 3D work or like photography because they're just gonna use me for that at the agency." And I was like, "Sometimes yes, but sometimes you're gonna get like a huge opportunity, and that can be your way in other projects as well." So
Hey,
it
it's a
depends
fair
how you see
concern.
it.
It's
I mean,
definitely
it
a fair
depends how
concern.
we see it. Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
I would see like, "Oh my God, that's a great opportunity," but I'm too optimistic. Oh, I think we covered that. If you because a lot of people always ask me, should I use Squarespace because that's what everybody's using, but it's open to the table. I just curious to know. Like I know Marina is a Squarespace. I'm a Squarespace. You were Squarespace. Marcelo is a Squarespace.
Yeah. I mean, I
There you
just think
go.
you can use whatever you want. Just don't reinvent the wheel yourself. Like
Yeah,
you know, if you're changing it up because you are a programmer or you are, you know, a programmer or whatnot, or, you know, we're hiring an artist for a certain job or whatever that would be, awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. But, you know, again, we everyone's really busy. Let's get to the work as fast as possible. So, you know, I would think like within that sandbox, right? Just play around with it, but don't
yeah.
reinvent the wheel in terms of where the navigation goes and what happens once you click on.
I do have an extra question. What you all think about Behance? Just putting it out there. There's a lot of don'ts of that people don't like this platform. I don't know if you have like if you see a portfolio that came from Behance, if you have like a no, or would you be
No,
willing to review?
I
I,
think.
I
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Marina. Go
No,
ahead, please.
go ahead,
No,
please.
please.
No, I was just going to say it's like it's what you were like you guys were talking. It's what feels you feel more comfortable, but have a personality. So
Yeah,
reinvent. And I feel Behance, it's the platform that locks you up the most
for
on
sure.
um, a look or a style or how you exhibit your work. One thing I feel that so many times great artists that has Behance projects lose the power of getting a job or getting their book introduced more than they become just reference work. Hey, look at this work, and it becomes like a swipe on on a presentation.
Yeah,
And
that happens.
like instead of going like, wow, look at this book, like this is a good reference, but look at the guy. So you become more a project instead of a person. I feel in Behance.
I don't think, I would hope that no one dismisses or eliminates a candidate or a book based on the platform, right? I think what you're hearing from all of us is that find a way of showing your personality, but also don't reinvent the wheel. Make sure that navigability is core to it, right? Marcelo talked about the 4-click dropdown that this one CD looked at as he was interviewing. I think the longer it takes for me to get to your work, because I get that you spend time and effort customizing it, but
Yeah.
it's a little myopic because the CDs and the recruiters just don't have time, right? I had in ad school, I had Lionel Carrion was kind of he was a substitute teacher in one of our classes, looking at our portfolios, and he said, I have a stack of books. This is when they were being printed. I have a stack of books, and the longer it takes and the more craft it is, I know you guys spend time and effort into it, but sometimes what that does is makes it harder for me to get to the work and see what your talent and what your skill set is. So just
wow.
make sure that comes through and it's not a hindrance or an obstacle in letting yourself shine.
And just a side note, like, and I speak with a lot of recruiters now that I'm looking for a job. I just like to talk with them. They spend like an average of 2 minutes on a portfolio, which is like insane. That's not even the length of a case study. So that comes to the point of what you all are saying, like have an easy to navigate website to facilitate them to review a portfolio. So they like can see like at least like a whole project in your about page, but like 2 minutes is like so rude for all the efforts we put on a portfolio, but like it's insane. So keep that in mind when you're building your portfolio because it's wild.
That's a great nugget right there for everyone. But it's not like you can plan around that. You can just do your best because there's not one way to view a portfolio. So yeah,
It's insane though.
That's a lot less time than I thought it would be.
But do you have Google Analytics? Because you can, like, I'm a search portfolio stalker because I have Google Analytics on my book. So I keep up with like the amount of time people spend on my portfolio. And let me tell you, it is so sad. So it's like 2 minutes, I swear to God. So that's how I based off on this probability too. It's insane. The page they always look is about page. That's the one they spend more time on it. It's wild.
I think that's why structure and again, not reinventing the wheel helps you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Navigability and structure are going to really be your best friend. So the goal would be you have 2 minutes of their attention, and it's probably not their undivided attention. They're probably multitasking, talking on the phone, ordering lunch, picking out a piece of spinach from their teeth, whatever it might be. And then if they see something that really captures them, that's when you're hopefully going to like parlay that into a 10-minute or 15-minute review of a site. And that's a long time, like just because people are in back-to-back meetings. So it's not because people don't, I know you kind of said it in jest, Camilla, but it's not because people don't want to spend time on it. It's they don't have time to spend on it.
Yeah. It's a crazy timeline that we live in, which is kind of sad though, that people don't have to like more than 2 minutes. That's insane. So we should rethink all of that. But yeah, this is a good question because gifts, people love gifts, but sometimes when people see that on their portfolios as thumbnails, some people say it's overwhelming. Some people say I like so. But I just wonder, like, from you guys, what's your opinion when you see a lot of gifts as thumbnails? Do you think it's too much? Do you think it adds movement to the website, or like, nah?
I don't mind if it adds to the overall how you stylize this thing. If there's a color scheme within those GIFs, if they're not competing against each other, if they're working together well, it's don't put a hat on top of a hat and don't confuse me while I'm looking at this thing, And if it's a piece that's enticing, if it's a gift from the campaign, and that's what it should be for the thumbnails, right? In general, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's intriguing, and that basically just like makes me want to find out a little bit more. And if it's just a gift that I've seen already, or it's not funny at all, or not interesting at all, it's not doing much for you. Maybe it might take longer to load. I don't know.
I think, you need to be judicious about the GIFs and thumbnails you use, especially GIFs, right? If you're using something from like the movie Old School, and it's a very serious topic within, there's a disconnect there. And I'm just like, what am I getting into? Or the other thing is like, I personally but I could hate Will Ferrell. And you don't like, I think you need to be careful about whatever is reflective of the
very
work.
Specific.
I was just making that up because of Old School. But,
you came so fast, you were mine.
Yeah. That's pretty much, yeah. But yeah, that's how my brain works. But like, I think that's what you need to be cognizant of as you figure out what are the key frames of the GIFs that you're kind of using to pique people's curiosity.
Yeah, and the excessive amount of GIFs Josh was saying to me right now, that it takes a while to load the website too. So you don't want to add that up to the experience. Can be a lot.
I think it's what you guys said. It cannot be distractive. It needs to have a purpose, or like it needs to be coordinated. It needs to help boosting what the experience more than just distracting you, or not like, or making you like get lost on your page because you don't know where to go or what to click or what you're talking about with that gift. So
yeah, because one time I saw a portfolio, they had like 20 projects and all 20 projects had gifts. I swear to God, I thought I was going to have a seizure. It was too much. My brain couldn't take it. It's like small squares. I'm like, okay, Camilla, don't look at it, just blink. So yeah, this is my last question before we jump to the Q&A questions. So what do you like to ask when you interview a creative? Because I always hear that from a recruiter. So I'm curious to hear about your point of view. What is the weirdest question you ever do in an interview? That's what it is. It's like people always ask some weird questions. So I'm looking forward to yours. Or if you don't have any, it's good too.
What is a weird question?
Yeah, like what do you like to ask people when you interview them? It can be a weird question that you like to ask just to get to know them, or just a normal question.
No, I wouldn't call this weird. That I have to think about it a little bit. But I think, you know, Bharat and I are partners. So like what we like to ask is, what are they looking for? And you'd just be amazed on, you know, how many different ways a creative can answer that question. You know?
That's true.
But and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad. But it's a good icebreaker. It's, you know, they immediately start talking about probably what's not working, you know, out in their current place and what they need, you know, to be satisfied and to create better work. And, you know, sometimes it's like, what are you looking for? More money. Okay. That's a fair answer.
Straight up, quite, yeah.
You know, yeah, you know, it's or I'm not given autonomy, or, you know, I'm looking for my next challenge. It's not challenging enough anymore. You know, they're all fair answers.
I don't want to put more pressure on the interviewing, you know, responses, but have a point of view, right? Like I'm just looking for a great opportunity or a challenge. Like, no, not like you get forgotten right off the bat, right? So you might say something that we don't like, and actually it's probably better that we don't like it and you know that we don't like it, because then that's probably not a marriage that's going to be, you know, set up for success, right? So think of it that way. It is a two-way street. I'd also say don't badmouth your current place or your former place.
Yes, for sure.
Right? Come in the four walls of, or the virtual walls of your new agency, and then do it if you want, but don't do it in the process of interviewing, because that's not a good look. And the industry is way too small for it.
Oh my God, yes it is. So be careful, peeps. Yeah.
I think you need to be honest, because that question is, whoever asks will know if you're just trying, it's an answer that we want to hear, or if it's the true answer. And I think it's great that if you're honest with, because so many times you hire someone because of the answer that they give, and it's not actually what the person wants from that job. And everyone has the right to have whatever goal they want for that job. As you were saying, Marcelo, if it's the money, it's fine. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad creative or like a better creative, like better. But it's be realistic, because we know when you're not being honest, and it's going to be worse, because sometimes it means that you don't fit for that team if we hire you for the wrong purpose. But I don't think it's the weirdest. I think the weirdest question that someone asked me was my current boss, which I loved, because I was like, what? He asked me what was the excuse I was giving for my current job.
Oh, I love that one.
Interview. And I was like, okay. But
like, mine was like my favorite, like, what, describe your favorite sandwich. And I was like, is that a catch? I don't know. Should I create a sandwich and think like, oh, I'm a creative, I can create a sandwich? I don't know. I said Italian, but I didn't. It was so weird.
I
wasn't expecting that. I didn't say McDonald's because it's not a burger question. So that's the catch one. It's a sandwich, not a burger. Otherwise, I would say McDonald's. You know, I'm a McDonald's kind of gal, but it was a weird question. It was so weird.
I'm realizing that Marcelo and I are very boring interviewers right now.
Yeah.
Ask the favorite sandwich now. Ask they're like your favorite afternoon snack.
Yeah.
Just ask that, and then you get to know a lot of the person with what they eat. Yeah.
One time, someone, it was one of my first jobs. First, I called the person, I made a mistake with the name because I had a difficulty pronouncing her name. So to end the conversation after I said wrong the name, she was like, now the last question and the most important is, tell me a joke that I actually laugh, like can laugh. And I was like, when you're put it on the spot, nothing comes to your mind, nothing. So it was like, I blushed.
Who does that?
It was good. It was good.
My God. Oh. Well, those are all questions for me. Let's go. Oh my gosh, we have a lot of questions. Let's go with the questions here. Do you have examples of an about page that has stood out to you? Do you guys have any? I mean, mine doesn't stood out for me, but like, for example, mine, if you talk to me, you know I love McDonald's and Diet Coke. So I describe my McDonald's bundle on my about page. Of course, I talk about my work experience and stuff, but I just would like to break the ice describing my favorite McDonald's order. So that's just something, it doesn't stood out, but it's something that very represents who Camilla is. So if you know me, you know that I don't eat well. So that's just who Camilla is. But I don't know by heart any about page that stood out now that I'm talking about.
I couldn't tell you one off the top. It goes to Marina's point where, when you're asked, you don't remember. But I could tell you, what I think, mine just has like about 10 sentences about me, right? I don't get tired with the third person joke. If you give me some substance, talk about yourself, change it up. Give me 10 bullet points about yourself, If you read mine, you know that I was born in Paraguay, and I'll talk about that a lot, yeah, and I was chased by a bull, and it wasn't.
Oh my God.
So like little things like that. It's
a conversation starter.
It is. And then, you know what, if I interview someone and they bring that up, it'll make me laugh. It'll make me smile. And it's like, okay, you've done your homework, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
There is one about page that marked me when I was when I was about to graduate in ad school. And Kate actually is on this week giving a speech, probably she gave yesterday. Kate Carter. She was the copywriter when I was working at JWT. And I remember when I never knew how to do my about page. And I remember I saw hers, that it's her baby photo, that she was like a Miss Mississippi or something like that. And I remember—
Yeah, she shared it today, the same photo.
Oh, she did? But I remember it's been 8 years that I saw that, and I was like, wow, I like that, because it's not like, you're not telling me your bio, like I did this, I studied that, or it's just one story that actually transmit who you are, or like gives the essence that how, like, what is your personality, or what is your spirit, your humor. And if like, I remember working, I was an intern at that time. For me, that bio was exactly who she was. And I remember, like, in my head, and I even remember her side by now, like, if I need to say it. It's crazy.
I love that.
You don't have to give your entire life story.
Yeah.
Give us enough to want to talk to you. That's it. Not just your name and your phone number and where we can contact you.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't put your phone number. Scam calls. That's where they get your phone number. Scam calls. I cannot, like, people keep calling about my student loans. I'm from Brazil. We don't do student loans. So stop calling me, please. That's it. Don't put your numbers. No. Sorry, you were saying I cut someone off. Sorry.
I'm learning stuff from you right now, Camilla. So I'm going to have you look at my site too.
Oh yeah. Send me your portfolio.
Yeah.
I saw it. It looks good. I like the quality. I did some stuff.
Thanks to Marcelo. No, I would say, like, to what Marcelo was saying, like, don't give your entire life story. I think when someone goes on and on and on about their about page, I get a little worried that that person's a bit too me and me centric, right? And then what is the overall look of the team and the dynamic there? And I think those are the questions that, you know, you got to be mindful of. You don't even want to have people raise those questions, I guess is my point.
Yeah, definitely, like team spirit. That's what they're looking for. We have a question. We have a lot of questions. People are really interested in portfolios today. I'm just like, some questions I'm like typing the answer because it's like quick. It's most like Pin My Portfolio tips. So I'm just typing it away. But some I want you all to reply. How do you, speaking about portfolio descriptions, how do you feel about portfolios using the phrases this or I came up with this concept, especially from people that work in art director and copywriter team, or for work that was clearly creative team campaign? I don't like that at all. It's like we created. Also, like,
repeat that again, please. I missed that question.
How do you feel about portfolios using the phrases "this was my idea" or "I came up with this concept" when they worked as a team?
I don't like it at all.
Even if you don't work as a team, you say you worked as a team.
This industry, you'll last longer in this industry if you consider yourself part of the team. Eventually, you might be the leader, right? But even when you're the leader, you need to use the word we a lot more often. It's we.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, hopefully we're saying today as well too.
I don't like that answer at all. It'll help you out reframing this industry that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely agree.
It's a really good answer. I think we have a question for copywriters. What about length and format for, say, a copywriter? Do you mean about the project pieces, like banners? That's what the question is about? I think I'm going to type that answer because I'm still TBD.
Okay.
Oh, advice if you're an aspiring art director, but you're not in ad school, but you don't have a copywriter working with you. Good question, because Marina is working on a side project called Make Ads With Me. So she's like a project that partners you up with people that doesn't have a partner. So it's like a Tinder for art directors and copywriters. So check it out, Make Ads With Me. I needed to use this question to advertise for you, Marina.
Thank you very much.
A good creative here. So yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity for you sometimes, even to find, so many times when you're freelancing, you need someone, they look for teams. That happens to me in the past. Like, you end up partnering up with someone that you don't know, but you need to find that partner to get that job as a team if you're freelancing. But Make Ads With Me, like, it is a matchmaker, like, for partners. There is a Facebook group that it's always like going on. So if you need someone like to work on a project, or you guys are looking for gigs together, but it's also like a good way to break in if you need, like, there's mentors that can help, like as a more senior copywriter or more senior art director. But thank you, Camilla, for mentioning it.
I had to mention me. I wouldn't say anything. Jesus.
I think that's a great platform. That's amazing. I tried first because just didn't want to pay the money, tried to do it on my own. I didn't have the self-discipline. And, you know, I just would talk to people and they would say, go to ad school. And I finally listened. But, you know, more power to anyone that can do it without ad school. That's amazing. It's hard.
There's also a platform that's pretty nice for even strategy. We have a question for strategy here, that you don't have an art director and stuff. There's an app called canva.com, and then they offer like templates that you can fill with typed like information and stuff, so you can become your own art director. It's a great app. Like, you can even do your resumes there. Like, yes, resumes, people do still use resume. So use Canva. It's a great app and you can learn a lot from it. But yeah, that's just one way to go too if you're like really in a hurry. We have questions from a strategist. I love portfolios for strategists, just putting it out there. That's a creative that loves strategist book. So I'm just gonna ask. Any recommendations for strategists? Our work is not always visual, not always executed, not always properly realized, not always resulting in ad work executions, but can be conceptual. So one thing I always say for strategists, I don't know if you guys haven't seen like a strategist book, it's a lot of information, it's a lot of copy. But one thing I always say is that you were part of the brief Like you put together the brief. So if the work was produced, you can put as a result. Like just make it clear that you did the brief, you work on the strategy alongside with the client. Just make it clear in the description what your role was, but don't hide the results. I mean, it can be numbers, but also show if it was a TV spot, put the TV spot there, because you guys you gave us the brief to make it happen. So I love strategies book. I've seen some great ones. It's just a lot of information. So don't use like hard words. Sometimes you use like a long words that gets very scary. Like creatives, we don't like that. So just try to keep it short.
I completely agree. The other thing I'd say about a planner's book is the word is brief, right? So if you worked on it, make what the brief was brief. You don't need to go into everything about it. So what are the highlights that informed what the brief was, and then what are the results? Especially if you got something, you should show that work.
And it's so interesting that they have portfolios now, because I had no idea until I got my first client. And then she asked if I had any references. Like, I never did one. Like, do you mind if you be my first one? And she was like, no, not at all. So for me, it was like a learning moment for me, for sure. Like, it's what
I saw one from a girl. She's Brazilian, but she's working here. The way that I like the way she did, it's because she built it up like the process. So even the way that she's building the brief, it's not just copy on top and the result on. So it's kind of like it's literally scrolling down. You see the entire process, but you see the brief being matched with visuals. And I thought that was pretty cool, and was one that I remember on top of my head. The same way as producers book that I've seen that producers
there's
are
a lot.
yeah. And I like seeing that because it's makes me trust way more on them if they have that sense, even the visual sense on how to lay them out. So
I think I know we ran out of time, and I know people are busy. So I'm just going to select one last question. And then whoever has more questions, I'm going to put my email on the chat. So feel free to send me an email. I'll gladly answer them. And I also giving my time to review portfolios. So if you send me your book, I'm gladly going to review them, because that's something I love doing it. Not the pieces, just the presentation, because I'm also a creative and I see a lot of books. My brain is just going to explode. So I'm going to check the presentation. So going on the last question, let's see. I'm hearing a lot of love for media-specific work here, radio, print, etc. But the advice I've gotten recently from every single recruiter and creatives is not to provide media-specific links in my portfolio. That's weird. I used to have a TV, digital, etc. links, but took them off to show campaigns. Would you say segmenting work by media is dated or useful? I personally don't like when I see separated by media. I like when it's like part of a campaign. So if you did like just one TV spot, just put the one TV spot under that brand or campaign. But categorizing gets very confusing, and it makes me not remember when I'm like talking with the person doing an interview where the thing was, because I have like visual memory. So I need to visualize on the website. So for me, I get lost. But I'm curious to see what you guys think.
If I'm understanding the question, though, I think it's because of something I might have said, or we might have said, about tagging the work, right? Still go in terms of campaigns and brand. But like, for example, when you're on, there's a really simple way of doing it is like integrated campaign, or it might just say print or radio only. Like, I think it's just like, so people can scan it. That's what we're talking about. I don't think we're talking about segmenting it by the actual media.
One time I heard that it was good to divide for art director, for example, if you want depending the job you're looking, dividing is as your art direction like book, so it's more structured to show and showcase your art direction, versus having also one of the link that it's more showcasing your design skills, in case that if you're looking for like a job that it's more like a design director versus like art director. So I heard before that like having two different layouts but having the same content, it's just the way you exposed, but never like by media itself.
I've done the by media thing way back, and I think there was just too much information to absorb. at face value when you get there, you know. And I just lost it. I'd never saw the need to bring it back, and I'm not looking for that right now, if that helps.
No, that's really good. I know you guys must be really busy. I can tell. I know, I imagine, because agendas. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for participating. I learned a lot from you all. It's nice to see a perspective from creatives because I always talk with recruiters. So that was really helpful. Thank you very much. And then for whoever we didn't answer all the questions, please feel free to send me an email. I put my email there to like, I love reviewing books. So if you want me to check it out, please send me your email. And thank you very much, guys. It was really helpful and I learned a lot.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This was fun.
This is
For
great.
Everybody.
participating. Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Bye. Have a good rest
everyone.
of the week. Bye.